Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. Though tonight we will only have a little bit of cruise line to talk about, because we are going to be discussing the D23 news and updates, mostly focusing on the parks and all of that news, all of the fun new things coming at us. But of course, we need to bring our reporter who is on the ground, bringing us all of our live updates. She was in our Patreon group giving us the play by play as it happened. We would like to welcome onto the show Nova. Nova, how are we today?
Hi, everyone. I feel like it's been a minute. I know I told folks I would come back every so often, but it's like actually been a while since I have been back. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, and this is one of the shows actually that kind of started you off on the podcast. Like, this was
That's
one of the
true.
big things that you did for the show because you and your family always attend the D23 Expo, which just happened this weekend.
Yes. So the first time we ever went was 2019. Then the pandemic happened and we decided not to go. When was the last one? 2022, because um our kiddo was in foster care and there was no way we were going to be like, yes, let's camp out overnight on the cold concrete while we wait to go to all these panels. And so we skipped 2022. And then uh, as soon as they announced this year, and they also announced that the evening showcases were reserved seating, we were like, sold, we're back in it. So that is one of the reasons why we went this year. Another reason is because we thought, okay, people hated 2022 announcements where it was like Jennifer
Nothing.
Lee on stage being like, hey, we're going to blue sky with you all. And everyone was like, I'm sorry, what? Um, and so we knew they were going to try to make up for that this year with some big announcements. And yeah, so that's why we went this year. And we'll probably go in 2 years. I think it is a really fun event to go to, especially if you're just a general fan.
So they did something new this year, as you alluded to, where they actually booked the Honda Center to do the big, huge panels and gave you all assigned seating for that. And they even like bust you over there from the convention center. Did you feel like that worked out well, worked out better for the overall flow of the, I'm going to call it a convention? There we go.
Yeah, so they also provided free parking. Um, and we stayed at a hotel really close to the convention center. So we just drove to the Honda Center each night because the buses did kind of seem like a free for all. Like there was a bit of a um, Disney World after one of the theme parks closes vibes.
Sounds right.
Where everyone's waiting to go back to their hotel. And so, because parking was complimentary or included, as Christy would say, we were like, okay, well, let's just drive. So, each of the 3 nights we drove over there. We got there varying degrees of early. Getting into the Honda Center, super easy. Getting out was just sort of like the whole cattle
Leaving
being
anything in
herded.
a sports
Yeah.
arena.
Yeah, and since I famously love sporting events, I was very used to. No, what I felt like it felt like leaving a concert. So I mean, yeah, totally. It's just a lot of people trying to get out at the same time. But besides that, I do think it ran smoothly. And they started busing people, I want to say like 2.5 hours before the presentation. They would announce over the show floor, like, attention, the Honda Center shuttles are now departing. So, and they were all like private charter buses. They weren't Disney buses.
Yeah, that's on brand for when they do pretty big events like this. Did you feel like the actual show convention floor was more crowded though because there weren't people waiting to get into panels all day?
Oh, the showroom convention floor was like uh
Chaos.
pure chaos for 3 days. And At least it used to be that there would be 7,000 people in, the Hall D presentation or whatever. And so there was like a big releasing of tension that would happen during those. So at least if you didn't get into one of those panels, you could go do all the stuff that you wanted during that time. Now, I can't speak for what the convention center was like for the last 2 hours of each night because we had already left. And so maybe having 12,000 people leave the convention center to go to Honda Center meant that at the end of the night it was chill, but we weren't there to see that. So it was just chaos for 3 days.
Sounds still about right, though. But from everything
Yeah,
I saw, there was a lot of hustle and bustle on the convention floor. Again, because you don't have people waiting in lines, which is good that you don't have to camp out on the ground anymore at
right.
2 in the morning or whatever time you decide to get there. Real quick, we are live for our Patreon members. So if you are watching live, thank you for supporting the show as always. Liz says hello. I think you have 13 things to discuss, which we will get into very shortly. And Christy also says hi. I'm going to assume from the comfort of her bed.
Oh, right. It's late there, Christy. Are you sure you're awake for this? But yeah,
Reluctantly.
so exactly. So, if you've never been to like a convention before, I would say this is not unlike Comic-Con in terms of the activations. So like they have really cool experiences that are free or included, and those experiences have long lines, all of them. So if you want to go into these cool little pavilions that they've built, you have to be willing to wait, 20 minutes on the low end, 2 hours on the high end. And that really eats up your day if you want to go do those things. And so, um, to get that out of the way early on here, I'll just say we didn't do a lot of activations because of that, because we were like, do we want to wait? Like there was a really cool Marvel TVA activation that people loved. But the line was always like hundreds and hundreds of people deep. And so we just never did it. And apparently in there, they debuted essentially Turtle Talk with Crush a la Rocket from
I saw that.
Guardian.
That looked
Yeah.
cool.
Right. I hear it was great. We didn't get to meet Rocket, but I bet that technology is 100% coming uh, to the Disney Cruise Line in the Rocket and Groot restaurant that they are doing for Worlds of Marvel.
That would be pretty awesome. It would be pretty on brand with the like taking over the animator's palette style vibe that the restaurant has.
Yeah.
But do we want to get into this? The reason why we're here, the reason why anyone wants to be here and watch, talk park and cruise line news?
Absolutely. We should definitely start with the DCL stuff because that is what everyone's here for. But don't worry, we'll talk all the stuff that was announced at Horizons tonight while we're talking.
Yeah, so first off, this got like a little bit of a rebrand. They named it Horizons Parks Experience Showcase. And this was the biggest spectacular that we've ever had for any sort of like parks and resorts announcement. Like this was a crazy production.
True, true. On a level heretofore unknown. Um, Basically, I'll set the stage. We walk into the Honda Center. They give us these little bracelets that are LED bracelets, like you would get at a Beyonce concert. And those bracelets are connected to their lighting system. So they can send effects out through the entire arena with little lights on your wrist. So obviously, that's freaking cool. And then the actual stage itself, unlike the previous night, which is when they announced all their new TV shows and movies for the next, 2 or 3 years, uh, the stage had a 60-piece orchestra just like camped out on it, which is wild as well. Who puts a 60-piece orchestra for a announcement of new theme park lands? But Disney. And so that was super cool. We were excited. It sort of set the tone for like, this is going to be classy and exciting and definitely at a different scale than we've seen before.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get into it? There was all sorts of filler in this, musical acts between every single sentence. You couldn't speak a word without a musical act in between, and a lot of it was very cool. A lot of it went along with whatever they were announcing, but man, it was a lot. It was long. It was 3 hours. I was watching live up until past 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Was the quick question, was like the vibe of it still exciting towards the end for you guys? Because like for the end, us like watching it, we're like, okay, we're ready, we're done.
So, well, okay. I can't imagine watching it from home with the performances because those, I don't see why they would translate well over film. I haven't like gone back and watched, because how did you watch it? Was it from someone like with a cell phone just like live streaming, or did
Yeah,
Disney?
we just bounced off of people like YouTubers live streaming because they were told they were allowed to.
Well, I mean, great for them, I guess, but also a little interesting that Disney decided not to
To do
just
their own.
do their own produced live stream. But I truly don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe to sell tickets to this, like to make it feel more exclusive, like you get to be in the room where it happens. But the performances were fun. I will say, universally, nobody enjoyed the random, like 25-minute Alice in Wonderland concert that we got at the beginning
That was
because
weird.
it was truly unannounced. It just happened. Like there wasn't any like, ladies and gentlemen. It was literally just like, hey everyone, Alice in Wonderland. And they just started singing. And we were like, oh,
And it
I
just
guess.
kept going.
And it wasn't to announce an Alice thing. It was just so we could listen to them. And honestly, I think it's because they've got to bus people in, they've got to get people seated. They could, in their little earpieces be like, 3 more songs, 4 more songs, we need more time. And so it's like just to entertain us. But like when you start the show 25 minutes, 20 minutes late because you're listening to a band you didn't plan to listen to, you're a little bit like,
It got a
better
little bit
not.
cringe towards the end of it.
Yeah. So if you could just like blink, if you could go to the bathroom or go get a drink during that, it was just sort of like a whatever moment at the beginning. The room was not particularly hyped for it, but it happened. And then they brought out Josh Tomorrow. And Josh Tomorrow is, I think, of the executives at Disney, like pretty consistently liked.
Yeah.
And so the room was warm to that and excited. Like you just could feel the energy of like, okay, it's happening. So once we got past the concert, that happened. Now, I'll be honest and say, because we had to drive out of this place at the end of the night, we did leave during the like, they put the Country Bear jamboree up there and had a live performance, and we were like walking out during that just because it was going to be like a madhouse and the announcements were done. So if you tell me something happened during that performance, I wouldn't know because I was not there. I heard Shakira and I was like, bye everyone.
All right. Well, let's actually get into it. We are going to start with the DCL news since we are DCL Podcast. That makes the most sense. And before we get into the big one, we do have one smaller one I wanted to hit on. They did announce that the Broadway style show on the Destiny was Hercules, which is pretty on brand for everything they announced for the ship. Little Mermaid is wonderful in the Wish. We have high expectations for Moana. They did show some more concept images for that as well, which I don't have here. But this was kind of the big non-ship announcement here, which I'm excited for. I'm genuinely really want to see this when it comes out. I love Hercules.
I mean, same. The night before, they announced Hercules, the musical, going to the West End. So they're doing like a full mounting of the musical on the West End, which I'm sure would have the power to transfer to Broadway. And the performance from that was fabulous. Like it was so cool. And it got everyone in the room super excited and in the mood for Hercules. So then to hear that they're doing something on a smaller scale, but still around the same time as they're developing the West End musical seems kind of cool. And like they're going to put a lot of energy into making this a great show. I think I also heard that they didn't announce this on stage, but since then they've been trickling out little bits of information, and they said that this version of Hercules is going to have a previously unreleased song in it that was written back when they animated the movie, and now they're going to use it for the musical on the ship. So that's also cool. They're going to be great. It fits the heroes theme. And then you alluded to it, but the Moana show is going to have the largest puppet of Taka that Disney Cruise Line has ever put in one of their shows. It's like a 12-foot puppet of Taka, which I think is also super cool. So I'm excited in general for the shows.
Yeah, it always cracks me up when they're like, "This is gonna be the biggest at sea."
Hmm.
Like everyone loves to flex that. It's like, okay, it's
Yeah,
like it'll
I
be
mean
great
on
when we see
Broadway,
it.
on Broadway they've done much bigger, but it doesn't matter because it's on a ship, which is already a technological marvel.
True. Well, why don't we get into the big one here? I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't sure what they would really have to announce for Disney Cruise Line on this. I didn't know if we would really see much of anything. And while they left the details vague, and we have gotten some more details actually today on it, they did announce that on top of all of the ships already in the works, so on top of all 9 ships that we are going to see by next year, yeah, next year, 2 years from now, whatever the Wish clone for Tokyo comes out, we are getting an order for 4 additional ships, which is crazy. Now, they didn't give any details as to like the size or the layout or the design. We don't have any of that. What we do know is that they are set to come out between 2027 and 2031, so that scales with 1 ship a year within that time frame, which is also pretty crazy because it's not really skipping a beat from the current release schedule. So we're pretty much getting a new cruise ship every single year for the next 7 years, which
Yeah.
is wild. I think really the only cruise line right now at that type of level is Royal.
I mean, right. And I think, well, one, it tells you that cruise ships, especially Disney cruise ships, are money-making machines for them. They have what, $1 billion price tag when they make one of these. Who knows what inflation will do between now and 2031, but it costs them about a billion, maybe, 1.2, 1.3 billion to make one of these ships. Um, and while that seems like a staggering amount of money, once they're sailing, they just make so much more money for the company. And so I think in their mind, it's like, we don't know what the upward limit on demand is going to be, but we know that we're nowhere near it. We know that we could be charging half of what we're currently charging and still be a very profitable business. So let's put as many of these onto the market so that we can either keep charging these super high rates or find out that we hit the market roof and lower the rates for the ships, which of course all of us fans are hoping will happen. That the
Yeah,
more of these ships they put out there, the cheaper the older ships will become. Um, because 13 is a big fleet, but it's not the biggest by any means within the
no.
industry. And I know this is gonna scare some, diehard fans, but the Magic and Wonder will be very old by cruise ship standards come 2031. And while Disney is obviously giving them some tender love and care, it's hard to maintain ships of their age. And I think, this could be a sign that Disney is setting up the business to be able to function without some of its older ships if they start to age out of operation. So they did say 13 ships, though. So I do want to
Yes.
point out they didn't say, and this will bring our total number to 11. They said it'll bring our total number to 13, which indicates they're hoping to get as much life as possible out of the Magic and the Wonder. And Disney does have a very special thing in this industry going for them, which is other cruise lines do not garner a lot of nostalgia for their older ships. Their customers are very much like, what's the latest and greatest? And other cruise lines find that it's really hard to get people to want to sail on their oldest ships. Whereas Disney does this thing to certain types of fans. It's not even all fans, but certain types of fans who just get really mad when anything changes. And so they love having the Magic and the Wonder available to them at all times. And so I think Disney will keep them in circulation as long as possible, but they don't have science on their side. These are giant metal vessels floating on salt water. And so they do have an expiration date. The question just becomes when.
Yeah, I do think, fortunately, it is very obvious that when compared to other ships of the Magic and the Wonders age, these are still, you can tell they're taken very good care of, and I think they've put in the like utmost amount of tender loving care basically to keep those ships going as long as they can. So I mean, yeah, we'll see them still for several more years. Eventually those ships will go away. I too am, a Magic and Wonder apologist. I love the Magic. She's beautiful. But yes, she is an older ship. But again, they said 13 ships, so I think we will see them sailing for quite a while. But what we might see is that we might not see the Wonder and the Magic all that often if they are looking to expand their horizons, as they've been with sailings in Australia, and now we are going to have sailings all over Asia as well. These ships might be sent about to test some newer markets.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I haven't seen this anywhere, but I haven't been super following. They did open the show with an animation of a Disney ship sailing under like a symbol that was sort of like a peak looking thing. And honestly, the thing it reminded me the most of was like the Aulani A. And so in my mind, I was like, are they hinting here at like trying to expand the cruise line more into Hawaii? Are they, like hinting at more of a West Coast operations goal here? Which obviously makes a ton of sense with Disneyland in terms of expansion. The problem with that is that there aren't a lot of private islands up for sale off the coast of California. And so Disney would not be able to capture that specific market. And so people are not as eager probably to sail off out of the West Coast as they might be to sail out of Florida for that reason alone. But I do see them expanding to the West Coast with 13 ships. Come on, they've got to put something out here for Disneyland and sort of like synergize off of the land and sea packages sort of thing.
Yeah, we might finally see Steve's fantasy over there. I mean, I think we will see more. I think they could easily pull off 2 ships in Alaska during the summer season. I mean, most other lines are
They
doing.
could pull off 4, honestly. From a sales standpoint, they could have 4 ships in Alaska and still sell them out.
Yeah, so a lot of options there. Sarah says, is it wrong to dream for more ship time out of Galveston and NOLA? No, I really don't think it is wrong, because I think we will definitely see with this many ships some sort of floater over on that side. I mean, we already see it a little bit with the Magic here. So no, I don't think it's crazy that we would hopefully see a little bit more Galveston and NOLA action. Now it seems like they have been a little bit more reluctant to go back to New Orleans, but I would love to see even, a couple one or two off sailings out of there. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, same. I think 13 ships, the bottom line is 13 ships means new ports, new
Yes.
destinations, lots of cool places, and hopefully a brand that's more accessible. The reason why I think the announcement is interesting, though, is that it feels kind of unlikely that all four of these ships get, uh, launched here in the US. Or if they do get launched here in the US, then the dream, the fantasy, maybe the wish start going to these international locations to start sailing, because there is so much untapped money in an international cruise market. So we'll see. I think we're going to see less ships in the US, more overall, but I don't think all 13, I mean, we know all 13 of these ships are not going to sail out of the US.
No, and again, I think we'll see them in these next couple of years with these next releases as we get more ships coming to the US, especially the Magic and the Wonder testing the waters here.
Yeah,
Going
it'll
to
be
some
fun.
interesting places to see what happens.
I'm
But
excited.
I am too. But we have a lot more exciting news to talk about here. Why don't we take it to Walt Disney World and we'll break down. We don't need to go in quite as much detail and speculation here. I mean, I think some of this there isn't as much to go into. Um, but we can go ahead and move on. I have this just in order of what it was on the Disney Parks blog, but one of the announcements was that Hollywood Studios is getting a Monsters Inc. land, which I would have not expecting by any means, and I'm pretty hyped for this.
Yeah, it's I would say it's an out of left field. Honestly, this seemed more likely back in 2019 than it did to me today. Like the further we are away from Monsters Inc. IP, the less you expect them to be like, yes, let's build a land. Because I don't know that we're quite at the nostalgia yet. Maybe we are. Regardless, this got a huge reaction. People were really excited. Um, Now, they did bring out Billy Crystal to do a nice little vibe check on the room. So people were super excited just to have, a beloved celebrity pop out and announce the land. Um,
He
but
kind of
I think
crushed
you
it.
Yeah, no, he did great. He made really good jokes. A lot of those jokes were not scripted, like they weren't in a teleprompter. They were just surprise off the top of his head. Um, and there's certain things in the concept art that are like exciting. Clearly, the main attraction is going to be the focal point of the land. And this concept art that they shared is what really got the crowd screaming, because let's face it, we're a little bit tired of trackless ride vehicles that move through like dark ride environments. And we're also eager for new ride systems. And so Disney is, for the first time ever, going to be putting a suspended roller coaster in one of its parks. And the ride system is essentially meant to mimic the journey that the doors in Monsters Inc. go on as they travel along those tracks, to be put back into like door storage. They also announced a mechanism for the start of the ride where it'll seem like the claw is picking up your ride vehicle and putting it onto the track, which I think got a lot of like cheers and excitement. Um, but you can't say that you didn't watch Monsters Inc. as a kid and think that would be so fun to ride around on these doors. Like it seems like perfect IP for a roller coaster like this. So while it was unexpected, I don't think anyone's mad at it. I think people are pretty genuinely excited about this ride.
I think if you've ever armchair imagineered, you've had the thought that this is a cool concept. Like this is an example where IP is like appropriate and it makes sense. We definitely have some examples that we will get into soon where we've got some more offshoot IP. But no, this is awesome. Again, this is going into Hollywood studios. We're not exactly sure where yet. The rumor mill is strong that it'll go in the Muppets area, but I don't have any confirmation of that.
Yeah, the mill is also strong because there's a tiny expansion pad behind Star Wars, not Star Wars Land, not Galaxy's Edge, but the Star
Star
Wars.
Tours.
No. What's it called there? It's like the Star
Oh,
Wars
the Outpost or whatever.
Outpost. Yeah. So the animation courtyard. So that is like heavily underutilized, and there is a small expansion plot behind it. And so people are saying that the strong contenders are like ripping out Muppets, potentially taking out Star Wars, which is right next to Muppets, or going over to that like Star Wars outpost, tearing that down. The only thing
That
that makes me
needs torn down more than Star Tours
way
does.
more, yeah, way more than Star Tours, because Star Tours at least they can keep changing the storyline. But the only thing that makes me a little paused on that is they just announced they're bringing back the Little Mermaid show, which is part of that animation courtyard. So it's like, are they going to bring back that Little Mermaid show and then proceed to tear out the courtyard, or are they going to leave it and just work around it? But regardless, they are adding a land to a park that needs it. Like even with Star Wars, with what do you call it, Galaxy's Edge, that park is desperately needing more attractions, and now they're getting a really cool one, so I'm
Yeah.
happy for them.
Yeah, interesting going in that park that they like Hollywood Studios, yes, needs more. Doesn't necessarily need more thrill rides. But again, I am still excited for it and I am ready to I think see what comes of this. Do we want to move on to our next one?
Moving on.
All right. So, okay, I'm going to go to the next slide here.
This
Magic
is the most,
Kingdom
yeah.
is getting a Frontierland Cars crossover re-theme, kind of. This one is like pretty wild.
Yeah. You know, I will say, do I think overall this will be popular and people will like it? Yes. Radiator Springs is a very popular thing in California. People love the Cars ride. The like slot car technology is sort of ripe for the picking here in terms of this IP. But I think, you know, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said like it sort of had "and the crowd goes mild" vibes when they announced it, and it was not because bringing cars to Florida would be unpopular. I think it's because they said we're bringing it to the frontier land, and people were like, I don't
Why?
really know why that would fit there. Now, I will say this. I am not a Rivers of America, Tom Sawyer Island uh, purist. And I do think that in the Magic Kingdom, while having, they don't have Mark Twain, right? They don't have the riverboat. They have just like their own version of a riverboat, the Liberty or something. But that does add some kinetic movement into the land, right? To have a big looking river with a boat that goes by every couple hours or every hour, or whatever. Like, I get that adds some like theming and some special feeling to the park. However, I guarantee you that people don't go there in any quantity that justifies the like value of the real estate that takes up. And so I'm sure they were crunching numbers, looking at what what they wanted to do with the land behind Big Thunder Mountain, and knowing that they wanted to build a Villain's Land, spoiler alert, that was going to be big and take up a lot of space and get people buzzing. And when you start saying, okay, well, if we're going to build that behind Big Thunder, where else can we build new rides? Then this land starts looking more and more attractive, even though you lose Rivers of America, even though you lose Tom Sawyer Island, which, for me, not a great loss, but I know for some people that's sad. Luckily, we still have it here. So if you want to come to LA, you can go on what I would say is probably the superior Rivers of America, because we do have the sailing ship Columbia and the Mark Twain that both go by. But, and also Fantasmic in California is staged on Tom Sawyer Island, which is just also very cool. But for those in Disney World, I get it. It feels weird to put it there. What do you think, Lake?
I agree. I think it feels weird as well. And from the concept image you have on here, you can kind of see what that reimagining looks like with Big Thunder, and then Splash is kind of on the back left, it looks like. And you can see the classic side of Frontierland on the very left over there.
Right.
It does look cool, though. Like, I like this rugged, mountainy, almost like Wilderness Lodge-esque vibe that they're kind of going for. Like, that is a huge land expansion. And you're right, it's probably better utilization of the space that's there. I mean, Tom Sawyer Island is definitely very, very underutilized. I think at one point it was just looked at as this like reprieve from the crowds, but I don't think people really take the effort to go over there anyways. So,
right.
Again, Cars, Frontierland, I don't know that I necessarily see that, but this expansion looks cool. It is very interesting, like Cars go off-road type of theming that they're going with here. Like, it's very, again, very out of the woods. I don't know where it came from. But, I mean, Cars Land at DCA is probably one of the most beloved lands, I think, in probably both those parks in general. I mean, it's very much the land that said, like, okay, this is what theme park lands can be.
Especially in California, where we don't have a lot of land. Like, the thing about Radiator Springs in California is that the forced perspective makes it feel like a bigger park than it is. And so, yeah, I think, will people maybe be a little confused about the placement or adding the IP, et cetera, et cetera? Sure. Do I think that this will be one of the most popular attractions in the Magic Kingdom? Absolutely. It will have, 4-hour lines. People will love it. Kids and adults love Radiator Springs Racers. So if it's built on the same, like, general technology, people will love it. But change is hard. I get it. People will have their feelings, but of all the announcements made, this was definitely a surprise to me, but not a bad surprise, just a mild surprise.
Yeah, it was interesting. But then, of course, we have one more part of this Magic Kingdom expansion. One that is a lot more vague, but probably universally one of the biggest announcements from this one, which they did save for last and tried to pretend like they weren't making it and made a whole show about, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So we are getting Villain's Land. I forget what they officially called it on the D23.
Oh, I think they said Villain's Land. Or a land themed to villains, something like that.
Villain's Land, yeah.
So, basically, he was like, "Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for coming." And then flames started, like real fire started flying up out of the stage, and the magic mirror appeared behind him and basically was like, "Hey, you promised something 2 years ago, and I'm now going to try to like call you in to make you good on that promise." And I can't remember, they brought someone out to like convince him. The storyline was like, we're going to bring someone out to try to convince you to make good on this promise, and it was some singer. I can't remember who.
I don't remember.
But anyway, then he came back out and he basically said, hey, we're going to build it. The details are thin, but I can tell you generally what they were. So they said it will include 2 attractions. So that's a land, right? There's more than one attraction. So that's cool. Whereas with the Cars attraction, they didn't say that they were building Cars Land. They said that they were building a new attraction in the Frontierland area. And so for this, they're saying it's a new land. And they have quite a bit of land to work with behind Big Thunder Mountain. So they could really do something amazing here. Now, if you're listening and not watching in our Patreon group, the art that they showed you, and you can find it online, is very vague. There is not, you almost can't identify IP in it. Like, it just looks sort of like dark, creepy castles.
There is 2 things you can notice that are very obvious. So first off, the dragon is on the left-hand side shooting flames, which is interesting. But when you look to the left of that, there is, I think, very clearly roller coaster track. And it's made to look like a very broken up, like kind of broken mine train-esque, but even more like crooked and turned. But it looks very much like not a kiddie coaster type of roller coaster theme.
It's giving upside down for sure. But it's in the side of the artwork that has like Maleficent's vines, and so I could picture them, 3 years from now being like, those are just vines. But it could be an outdoor roller coaster, and if it is, that'll be cool. And it looks like what they're trying to pitch as the focal point of the land is like what looks sort of like a mountain or a cliff with a castle on top of it. And that's kind of
Maleficent's castle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so if we had to guess IP, there does seem a pretty strong connection to Maleficent. Now, you know what it honestly reminds me of? Is a little bit like the villain scene in Phantasmic, where it's like Chernabog, Maleficent, Ursula. Like, it's almost giving this like fantasy of what if all the villains got together and like messed with your day. And so in that sense, I think we're getting, for those of us who love Phantasmic, we're kind of getting what if Mickey's dream just stayed a nightmare. And that sounds super fun. Like, I'm into it 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely like a mixed bag. This could be like their banished realm type of idea. You do see there's a couple other castle concepts over on the right-hand side. Like, there's one kind of almost town-looking silhouette, and there's one very like prominent building on that right-hand side as well. I couldn't make out what that is supposed to belong to, but then you have a lot of your classic kind of villain tropes. You got a lot of that bright green color that we associate with Disney villains. And it is like a stunning art piece. Like, it's definitely something that gets you excited. And again, lots of little details in here to kind of make you guess. Liz says Hagrid's Magical Creatures Ride, but with villains. Yeah, I think something along that caliber. I mean,
would be so popular. People would love it. The only thing is putting it outside is a risk in Florida. Like, Disney loves their indoor coasters in Florida for this very reason, because the storms close the roller coasters constantly.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I know that coasters don't look good thematically, but I like the motion. Like, I like the kinetic energy that it gives to you.
Yeah. On the far right of the art, I know this is a podcast and not a visual medium, but on the far right of the art, it almost looks a little bit like Pride Rock, but if Scar like stayed taking over it. So I could also, and
I see that.
Scar's whole thing is that like green smoke, right? So I could see them just like super embracing any and every villain they want and finding little nods for that villain in the land, which honestly, people would eat that up. People would love that. And like I said, they've got a ton of land to do this. Like if they wanted to use all that land, and clearly they do, right? Because when they first announced this as a blue sky concept, they were like, we're going to put Coco back there. We're going to put, Encanto back there. And then way, way, way in the back, there might be a villain's land. And it's like now they're saying, no, the only thing beyond Big Thunder Mountain is villains, which means they're going to use all 20 some acres to like build an awesome land. That's amazing. Like Magic Kingdom deserves that. Also, this concept deserves that. If they're going to do it right, they need to give it a really like the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge treatment of detail, where it's just like so many different venues, rides, etc., etc.
Brian says, I want the ride in Yzma's lab from Emperor's New Groove.
Would be fun. Honestly, I would love it if they found a way to mash them all up. Like find a ride vehicle that takes you through all the different villains layers. Like amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, we could sit here and talk about villains all day. We do have one more park to hit in Walt Disney World. This is maybe the one I'm least excited about. We have more information on the Latin America expansion. I believe that is what they are calling it here. Let me just double check. Tropical Americas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Tropical Americas. So this is sadly taking over where Dino Land USA is in Animal Kingdom. And don't get me wrong, as someone who does understand the theming of Dino Land, no matter how you look at it, it was very much done on the cheap. And the theming, was made to reflect that in a fun way, but it hasn't aged well. Would I have loved to have seen a expansion of Dino Land and a changing of it with the dinosaur theme? Absolutely. But that is clearly not the way Disney wants to go. Now, do I think that the Tropical Americas, like as a concept and as a land being added to Animal Kingdom along that same lines of theming that Animal Kingdom already has, because that is the most detailed and to me is the most beautiful park. Like I love the nature and the scenery, the greenery of that park. Yes, it is 140% humidity all day, every day because of it, but I love it and I'm here for it. However, this is definitely very much an IP, like, smackdown coming in here.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Everyone knows that dinosaurs are my favorite. The Dino District on the Disney Wish is obviously the best part of the ship, etc., etc. However, Dino Land was not what I would consider a fair shot at people who love dinosaurs. Like or a fair grab for people who love dinosaurs. Like Universal is hitting it out of the water with Jurassic Park and having that IP. And so Disney was already going to have to like work really hard to find a way to put dinosaurs into their world. But they used a movie that was not really popular and built a ride that people love. I think people love Dinosaur. There are people who don't like it, but it's a great ride. Like that ride system, the Indy ride system is super versatile, does great things, etc. But then the like Chester's Hester's stuff is just like you said, it's cheap because it's built cheap, but also it's cheap because the theme is cheap. And so it's like, trying to like feed two birds with one scone or whatever. But then the whole land itself was just all over the place. There's like dinosaur archaeology. There's like, whatever that kid play area is. Then there's Chester's and Hester's. Then there's the Dino Institute and this really giant e-ticket. So the theming was a little bit off. Now, would it be cool if they just tried to do the theming right? Yes. But also, do I particularly love Encanto? Also, yes. And I am beyond thrilled with that ride in particular. The Encanto ride essentially is going to be like the furniture comes to life. So if I had to guess, I would say think trackless ride system, which fine. I'm into trackless rides if they do it right. So a trackless ride system where you sit down on a bench or something, and then all of a sudden it starts moving and takes you on a tour of the house. But don't forget that the rooms in the Encanto house are entire worlds on their own. And how cool is it to explore those places? And it fits in Animal Kingdom well enough because Antonio's gift is that he can talk to animals. And so I think we'll see a lot of really cool animals and a lot of really lush theming. So the Encanto ride as a concept, as a family-friendly attraction, as, you know, a IP that is like beloved and brand new. I think for all those reasons, I'm super excited about this. But let us not forget that at D23 2 years ago, they teased artwork for this part of the park. And the teased artwork for this part of the park had a Moana ride, a Moana boat ride going in where this Encanto house is. And that Moana boat ride is nowhere to be seen in any active project today. And that makes me a little bit sad because I also love Moana and I think she deserves a boat ride. So if that project can go anywhere, I'm still asking for it. I would like my Moana boat ride, but I'm thrilled with my Encanto magic furniture ride. So those are my thoughts. And Indy, they'll do it right. I'm sure they will. Like I said, the ride system is so fun and thrilling that it's really just coming down to theming. They got to do some really cool theming in there, and I think they will, and people will love it.
Yeah, I mean, it is no secret that between Dinosaur and Indiana Jones is the better attraction. Again, love Dinosaur, love Dino Lands, like favorites. But Indiana Jones is inarguably better. It is more kinetic overall. There is a lot less pitch black. It's less scary it is still a little scary, but a lot less than what Dinosaur puts you through. Dinosaur has traumatized children since its inception.
That's true.
Again, all here
they were
for
gonna
it.
get eaten. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think the land will be beautiful. I think it ties into Animal Kingdom, like just that area. I think that's going to be great. I'm not so excited about the Encanto. I mean, do I think Encanto should be represented in the parks? Absolutely. Is this an appropriate place for it? Yeah, I suppose so. Then the other thing that they added was that they are putting in a carousel, and I don't think anyone really cared.
No, we don't need another carousel, but think of what it's replacing, right? Like this is technically replacing the Triceratops
Triceratops
flyers
spin.
or whatever. And that does add some kinetic, like movement to the land more than a carousel would. But they still have some sort of open air, family friendly thing. It's inexpensive, it gives people something to do. That park in general lacks some kid rides, some things to do with the littles. So, I think fine. Go ahead, put your hand carved wooden carousel there. People will love that, but will it be super popular? No.
Yeah, it's another carousel ride. It'll be there. It will probably be beautiful. I mean, it seems like
Yeah, they had
they
it.
were very passionate about the way they talked about it, which is good.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, I think so what they announced one other thing for Florida, which is a lounge coming to the
I
back
didn't even
of
put that in the slide notes.
Spaceship Earth.
I don't
But
care.
I know you don't. But the reason why I said that is real quick. Next summer, we think next summer could be like next spring. Universal's opening Epic Universe, an entirely new theme park with like super popular IPs that are all getting state of the art rides. Every single land in that theme park is getting a state of the art ride or two. And it felt to Disney fans like Disney wasn't doing anything about it. Like Disney was just like, oh, we're still better than Universal. Meanwhile, Universal is like, hey, we're building How to Train Your Dragon world. And hey, we're building, a monsters themed land and a Super Nintendo world and yet another Harry Potter thing. And not only that, but we're doing non-IP based e-ticket with a dueling coaster that's not themed around any movie, any IP. It's just a really cool roller coaster. And people are like yearning for that from Disney. Like people want big e-tickets that aren't based around IP, right? People want like really cool original ideas and they want really immersive themed lands. And they also want another park. And Disney recently got approved to build a fifth park, an extended plan that nobody thought they were going to announce. Nobody was sitting there like, oh, they're probably going to announce a fifth park at D23 in 2024. But if you take all the things they just announced for Disney World, I would say that that is almost a whole theme park worth of things. Like a small
Oh, for
theme park,
sure.
but it's almost a whole theme park worth of things that they announced. They announced the Villains Land, the new Cars ride, 2 big e-tickets for Animal Kingdom. They announced, a bunch of really cool updated theming, nighttime entertainment, the parade that's coming to Magic Kingdom, etc. And so it is interesting, I will say at the very least, that they are building things that, if taken as a whole, do compete with Epic Universe. I just think that they're like 5 years too late. Like this stuff needs to be opened or opening now
Yep.
if they want to actually compete with Epic Universe. And some of this stuff isn't going to open for 6 or 7 years. Like I would be amazed if we get Villains Land before the next 6 years, because that's just a massive project. But anyway, I digress. The point is, they're competing pretty well with Universal. These announcements excited people. And yeah, Epcot's getting a new lounge, which Lake is most excited about.
Yep. Super thrilled. Why don't we take this over to your coast and hit the Disneyland announcements?
West Coast, best coast. I'm excited. Obviously, everyone knows that my first love in the Disney world, in the Disney parks world, is Disneyland. Which incidentally, Disneyland got almost no love in the announcement. We
No.
got one super super cool thing for the fans, which we'll talk about in a bit. But we did get a ton of cool announcements for California Adventure. In
Yes.
fact, super unexpected announcements for California Adventure. Two of them we knew about, and two of them were absolutely out of left field. Nobody thought that they were happening. So why don't we talk about Avatar, since everybody knew that that was coming? So they are building a boat ride, and everyone is pretty sure that this is actually going to be the same technology that they invented for the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Shanghai,
Which would
um,
be hype.
which would be amazing because it's the first time it's coming here, and that ride is considered potentially the best Disney ride in the world. Some people say that ride is even better than Rise of the Resistance. People love the Pirates of the Caribbean in Shanghai. So we're getting a ride based on the same technology, super cool. We're getting a ride based on the largest movie franchise in the world. Now, do I think that Avatar is beloved by everyone? No. But it is a beautiful enough franchise that riding through Pandora, whether you like Avatar or not, is a cool experience. Um, for those of you who don't know how the boat ride works, Lake, I guess like what's the like the technology is hard to explain. It's got something to do with magnets, but basically they can move the boat in any direction they want to, not just one direction down a flume. That's basically it, right? Like
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, but that's entire like ride itself just does some really incredible things. Like entire rooms feel like they're like lifting out of the air. Like you could watch a video of it, but I haven't been on it myself, but everything I've seen from it, it is just like almost unbelievable the things that they do.
Yeah, it people they take you from underwater to above water, which if you haven't seen the second Avatar, that's perfectly paired theming. Like the second Avatar is all about amazing underwater visuals, and then pairing that with the beautiful Forest of Pandora, I think it's gonna be easily one of the most technological rides in the world. And it's based on technology that's like 7 years old at this point. So uh, amazing. People are super excited. And also it's beautiful. The artwork for it. Now, where are they building it? I will tell you the most popular theory. They are building it on the Hollywood backlot just as you enter California Adventure. So to the left, when you enter California Adventure, we have a Monsters Inc. dark ride, we have Muppet Vision, and we have a really big like animation studio courtyard. But directly behind that is what we currently have as our transportation hub for all the buses. But since Disneyland Forward or whatever it's called got approved, Disney now has permission to build the transportation hub outside of the actual footprint of Disneyland across Harbor Boulevard. And so what people think is they're going to take all the land that they just got back by moving that transportation hub across Harbor Boulevard. So is it big enough to build a whole land? No. Is it big enough to build a really big ride with a gift shop and a restaurant? Probably. And so that's what people think is going to happen, that it'll be on the Hollywood backlot.
Yeah, that seems like the most probable area there. It does look cool. Looks like a cool concept. I mean, we have Pandora here, and I think that land actually went above most people's expectations. You know, it was, I mean, it is incredible and it's still a beautiful land. So it is exciting to see what they kind of do with 2.0 of that land.
Yeah. I mean, and the concept art looks super beautiful. It's got these like weird curvy circles of rock that, if I remember the second movie correctly, lead towards like this sacred underwater tree that everybody worships. So I'm sure that tree will be in the ride too. But yeah, so that was the thing we knew was coming, but they did a lot more concept art. They confirmed that it's going to California Adventure. These are all things we weren't sure about. Now we know. Um, what do you want to talk about next of the four announcements?
Why don't we take it over to Disneyland and talk about one that kind of threw me for a loop? I wasn't really expecting this one. Though I know it had some rumors going on about it, but Disneyland is getting a Walt Disney animatronic. It is going to be going where Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln is. However, it is not supposed to be replacing it. They are supposed to be, I guess, rotating it seasonally, it sounds like, with the original Great Moments ride.
Yes and no. So at first, when they announced it, they were like, importantly, this is also going to be rotating with Mr. Lincoln. But what I found out um, from like the press release is that for the 70th anniversary, it's just going to be this. And then after the 70th anniversary, they will have every other show be this show and Lincoln, like back and forth all day. And the way that they're doing this is they're putting the theater, the animatronics on a turntable. And
That makes
so
sense.
the turntable will just spin around every other show and it'll have Lincoln. But for the 70th, they're basically replacing Lincoln for that party or for that celebration to be like, it's the 70th anniversary of Disneyland, and we have, for the first time ever, a realistic Walt Disney animatronic, which I can hear the like Walt cryogenically frozen jokes already. from this animatronic, but the reality is it is kind of full circle to have this technology that like Walt and the original Imagineers pioneered now coming to help represent Walt as a storyteller himself, but also as an animatronic. So I think most people are just super excited. The vibes in the room were like nostalgic, happy, excited vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was a little bit on the negative side. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. And then I was like, okay, well, Walt Disney made an animatronic of a dead guy that inspired him. And now
It's true.
Imagineers are making an animatronic of Walt that has inspired many people. So I kind of have switched the sides on it to where I'm like, okay, I think this will be cool.
And also, as a Disneylander, I can say that many of us feel like the Hall of Presidents is super weird because the like living president keeps ending up in that thing. And then you have an animatronic of like Obama and Trump and Biden. Have they built a Biden animatronic? I don't know yet. But the point
I
is
don't even know.
they build animatronics of living people and put them in Disney World all the time. And so I think we're at the point where an animatronic of people is just a thing that
Have
Disney
now.
does. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I think we're excited, but when we tell you that is the only announcement for Disneyland, we mean that is the only announcement for Disneyland, which is a
Yeah,
little weird.
it is weird that they started the show with like the Disneyland 70 logo, and I thought they were like gonna start the show off with like, okay, here's what's coming for the 70th, and then
Nothing.
it just went to like news. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, the 70th, the big anniversary parties happen in California more than Florida. Like Florida hasn't perfected anniversary parties. Like I don't know if I'm just like on the wrong side of the internet, but people didn't ever really seem to love the 50th in Florida. They were kind of like, it's sort of meh, it's not as good. Whereas the 50th at Disneyland, like
60th.
launched, no, the 50th in 2005
Oh.
is the first time that Disneyland did like a really big anniversary celebration. And since then, every 5 years, we have like an amazing anniversary celebration, and people love them here. So, you know, is it shocking that they're doing a 70th anniversary celebration? No.
No.
And what will it include? Certainly fireworks, maybe a new parade, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So the next thing they announced was also not super new, but we got new details. And then we got an absolutely bonkers new announcement, which we'll also talk about. So they announced that they are building a third e-ticket for Avengers Campus. So the first e-ticket was the Tower of Terror retheme. The second e-ticket was Spider-Man. And even though people really like Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, they don't love that it is essentially just a retheme of Tower of Terror. And unfortunately for Disney, the Spider-Man ride, which is basically just a new take on Midway Mania, is also not super loved. It's like people like it, but they don't love it. And so the Avengers Campus is small with two rides that don't really anchor it properly. And Imagineers announced back in 2019 that they were building this huge e-ticket with an all new, first of its kind ride vehicle that Disney had never built before. And now that's not happening. So the ride vehicle that they're using looks to be maybe, I mean, what do you think it reminds you of? Like, I don't even know.
The
What
ride
honestly,
vehicle is basically the same ride vehicle. If you hop over to Universal and get on the 20-year-old Spider-Man attraction, which is still the best Spider-Man attraction in the world,
but
but
it's that, right?
it's that Universal simulator attraction. Like you
Yeah,
sit
like a
down and you're
moving
gonna get
simulator.
screens, and now again, there are plenty of really good rides on that simulator. But yeah, it is straight
It's
up, it's that
old
Universal
technology.
simulator type of theming, and I don't have the attraction vehicle, but they had the attraction vehicle at the expo.
Right, and I looked at it, and they even had schematics for how it works. Like, it has tilting hydraulics on it that allow it to move around back and forth. But yeah,
Shocker.
what's unclear is it a stationary like vehicle, or is it going to move through physical environments like Universal's? I think you're probably right. It'll move through physical environments and then stop for screen-based portions. They also announced that Robert Downing Jr. is coming back to reprise his role for that ride, which is unsurprising because he's also coming back to play Doctor Doom. And so Disney's like, well, while you're on set, can we film some new ride footage?
Right.
And they promised that it would go to different worlds. I think for sure we have confirmation that it goes to Asgard. We have confirmation that it goes to, I don't know, did you recognize some of the other Marvel worlds that it goes to?
I was not paying that close
Close of
attention to
attention.
like the
Yeah.
actual worlds.
But
Let me see if I can
basically,
find the article.
yeah, it's like it goes to, at least they promise like 3 or 4 different worlds while you're on the ride. It also has King Thanos as a villain, and it definitely gives very much the multiverse, where they could probably do lots of possibilities that don't impact the main storyline in any way. So yeah, that is that ride. Big e-ticket. They're building it. Right now, I think they said that they're breaking ground in the fall. So that's cool. I think that their hope is to try to get it open by the Olympics in 2028, because you don't want the Olympics to come to LA and Disneyland doesn't have anything new or shiny to show for it. So I think we will have Avengers Campus rides open by the Olympics. That's my guess. They didn't say that, so take that with a grain of salt, but that, if I had to guess, that would be my guess.
Yeah, it mentions Asgard, Wakanda, New York City as iconic locations.
That's right. And they said that the finale will take place in New York City. So the ride's like final scene will be a battle in New York. So yeah. But then they went to the surprise, which is they are building a 4th ride in Avengers Campus. And even funnier, this ride is almost certainly the all new ride vehicle technology that they promised for the original Avengers ride. So basically, what it is like a KUKA robotic arm that picks up and attaches to over the shoulder seat restraint seats. Think Harry Potter's Forbidden Journey at Universal. It's a very similar ride vehicle. But what if you look at the concept art closely, it looks like it's not going to be a long ride.
No.
And it looks like what essentially happens is the robotic arm will pick you up and then sit you back down on a separate track, and then detach from your vehicle and go pick up a different vehicle and move that vehicle around, which in mechanics is really cool and a really interesting engineering idea. And then while you're not on the KUKA robotic arm, you're like, well, then what am I doing if I'm just like sitting on a random track? But what the concept art shows is that you have like essentially a communication screen in front of you with an Avenger teaching you different flight maneuvers and flight moves. And so I think it'll essentially be like they'll hire some actors from the franchise to play different scenarios with you. And so when you ride it, I think they said you'll actually get paired with different Avengers. You won't know which person is going to teach you the flight moves, which means there'll be different scripts, different storylines. But overall, this ride does not promise any set pieces. It doesn't promise any sort of dark ride environment. What it looks like is essentially like, hey, we're going to teach you some flight maneuvers and then you're going to try them out with this robotic arm. Will it probably be a ton of fun? Yes. Is it groundbreaking? Absolutely not. So that's my take on it. It looks fun. It's definitely a surprise. I don't know, like, what do you think? Am I being too mean?
No, my I think word for word reaction was, "Hey, didn't we have this in Innovations in Epcot?"
We did.
Yep, because we had Some of All Thrills there, where you designed a roller coaster and then rode that roller coaster on a big arm like that. So that is pretty much what my expectation is for it. Again, not one of the big announcements for the weekend. However, not every attraction needs to be an e-ticket. Any
Nope.
attraction helps capacity. Any attraction is something new. Certainly I ripped on the carousel earlier, but that holds capacity, that adds capacity. That's a net positive. Not everything needs to be e-ticket. We need, those B, C, and D tickets for sure.
And it's almost certainly fun, right? Like, at the
Yeah.
very least, it looks like a blast, you know? It sort of looks like the adult version of the Dumbo ride, where like you're getting to get thrown around in the air for a little bit with a friend. So anyway, I think it'll be fun. And Disney designed this technology. I wouldn't say designed it from the ground up because Universal's been doing that for a while, but they obviously were originally planning this to be the technology for the big e-ticket and abandoned it for whatever reason and didn't want to lose all the investment they put into researching it. And so they were like, why don't we just build a little something, something on the side? And that's what they did.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
promise.
why don't we get into what I think is probably the most unexpected and exciting announcement for California Adventure?
Yeah. We're getting a Coco boat ride. And here's the thing. I know that folks are probably like, well, actually, there's two camps. There are some people who are like, don't you touch the Mexico Pavilion. If you change that little ride with the three caballeros again, I will boycott. But other people are like, obviously, that ride was ripe for a Coco over theme or theming redo because Coco's a huge IP. The Mexican Pavilion is definitely like one of the least visited rides in the park in terms of that, three Caballero ride. But here's why I think it makes more sense here. Coco is like truly one of the most beloved IPs in Southern California. We have a ton of Mexican American folks who live here who every single year visit California Adventure during this celebration, specifically a huge celebration with Coco puppets and dancing and music. And it's this big party that we have every year in California Adventure. Every year, people go to the park just for that. And it's one of these things that I think, especially with how close we are to Mexico, and how much of Southern California culture is an extension of Mexican culture, I think it fits beautifully here. I'm super excited that we're getting it. It seems original. Now, do we need another boat ride? Maybe not. But honestly, boat rides are basically just dark rides with a different vehicle. And it looks like an amazing dark ride. The details and the theming are gorgeous, beautiful, and I think it's going to be one of the most popular dark rides in California for sure. What do you think, Blake?
I'm excited for it. I mean, that movie is beautiful, and I think we have been waiting for them to make an announcement that they are going to bring that movie to life. Um, as much as I love Three Caballeros, I do agree that that land is, or that area would be right for a Coco retheme, and it would feel right. But I'm glad that it's going in somewhere. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it will do very well in California Adventure.
Yeah. Um, And honestly, I just think, like, not to put too fine of a point on it, but I just think that, like, especially in Los Angeles, especially in Southern California, like, Mexican culture is such a huge part of the Southern California experience. And I think the parks need to do a better job of reflecting and celebrating that. And this feels like an amazing step in that direction. So, for all those reasons, I'm thrilled. I'm excited. And I want it to be here tomorrow. Like, I want this to be my new Pirates of the Caribbean, where you go on it because you'll get to like sit in air conditioning for 20 minutes and like just be comforted by all the scenes that you know. I hope that it becomes that new like amazing sensory experience. So yeah. Anyway,
All right.
should be
Well,
fun.
we do have one more thing that actually does affect Disneyland, whether you count it as Disneyland or not.
Oh yeah.
We
You're right.
are,
You're right. We're
yeah.
getting Grogu.
So Smuggler's Run is getting a new scene, which thank goodness and finally, this ride was originally intended to be like Star Tours where you have options of different scenes that you could get. So I'm happy to see them implementing them. I hope that this is an improvement upon the original Smuggler story, which I could definitely see it being. We loved Mandalorian and Grogu. So again, this is overall plus. It doesn't take anything away. It only really adds something that really needs it. So it's exciting. And that's coming to both of the Galaxy Edges.
Right. It's interesting because it does seem to sort of fully embrace that the Imagineers' vision for Galaxy's Edge is done. I know that like they sort of already did that by bringing the Mandalorian and Grogu there as like face characters that would visit. But remember when they launched Galaxy's Edge, they said like it's the same day lived over and over and over and over again. And it is set in the exact time that it's set, and it's the exact culture that it is, and it is not an IP that you'll be super familiar with or a movie you'll be super familiar with, because that's just what we're doing. And people were like, that's not popular. You could have made a land that included all of our favorite Star Wars locations, characters, whatever. And by throwing the Mandalorian and Grogu into a Millennium Falcon ride, they are fully embracing that the timeline does not exist. And that's fine. I think that they're giving the fans what they want. But timeline wise, Grogu and the Mandalorian would not be flying around with you on the Millennium Falcon in the same exact timeline that you're also going to help Rey defeat Kylo Ren. And so they are embracing that, hey, we're just going to bring new experiences to this land that are Star Wars themed, and it's not going to have to make sense with the original timeline we once told you about. It's just going to be what it's going to be. And importantly, for those of you who are like, wait, are Grogu and the Mandalorian going to be on the Millennium Falcon? No, the concept art shows them flying alongside you outside of the Millennium Falcon. So I think that somehow we're going to like help them do something, like help them fight a fight, but they're just flying around you with a booster pack. So my question too, honestly, Lake, is are we jumping to Lightspeed? What are we like? Are we leaving? I guess we must be leaving Black Spire Outpost, but then what? We go to another planet where the Mandalorian and Grogu are. So it's interesting. It's changing everything we knew about that land, which I think is fine. You know me, I
Fine
like
with it.
change. Change is fun.
I am fine with it. That I like Galaxy's Edge. I love Star Wars. I'm one of those people that doesn't love the sequels all that much, but I do like Mandalorian. So I'm excited to see this. And again, I'm just excited to see something added to an attraction that needs more.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. They promised us different scenarios, and we've been chasing that coaxium for like 5 years now. So we need to start doing new things. We got to say Baby Yoda.
I agree. Well, I only have one other small thing that you hinted at that I could have put with the Walt Disney World news, and I did not for some reason. But they actually announced a lot of different nighttime spectaculars. Like I said, we are not hitting on all of them. They mentioned that Magic Kingdom will be getting a new nighttime spectacular. I got to be honest, I am not excited for that because while Happily Ever After slaps hard, most of their other newer nighttime spectaculars for Walt Disney World are not super well received, at least by me. But we are getting a nighttime parade, which we have desperately been missing, and I am very excited for. I believe it is called Disney Starlight. If I can find the article here. Yeah. At this point, any nighttime parade is a huge plus for us. And especially not just we're bringing the electrical parade back for the 14,000th time into one of the parks. Love the electrical parade too, don't get me wrong. But this is needed. This is, again, adding something where it was needed and where it should be. So I am excited for this.
Yeah, as a park that gets cool new entertainment all the time, I think part of that is a cultural difference between Anaheim and Florida. In Florida, like once something premieres there, people want it to be there forever if they like it, and they get really mad if it changes. And here, our mentality is like, it's exciting to see new things. It's exciting to see new parades and new shows, new fireworks. So we did have a nighttime parade recently that we all really loved, but the costumes kept injuring the actors. And so it didn't last very long. We've always been like, bring it back, bring it back. I'm sure they'll have learned some things from that experience for when they bring Starlight to you all, but nighttime parades are fun. You don't have to stand in the sun. LED lights are pretty to look at. And I'm sure it'll be full of really good music. So I'm excited for you. I will say, like, if it makes you feel any better, it's been a while since we've gotten a really good nighttime fireworks show. Like, they once did something called Mickey's Mix Magic, which was like abysmal. But
I've seen it.
Wondrous, yeah, oh, it's bad. But Wondrous Journeys was amazing.
A slap.
Like, we love that fireworks show, and it's been a while since we've had a fireworks show we love that much. And I would say it's roll the dice. Maybe you'll get a fireworks show that's like Wondrous Journeys, where you're like, dang, that is really good. But they got to hit the emotions right. They have to have the good music. And if they don't do it, then people don't like it. So I don't know. We'll see. But I am holding out hope. I hope you get a really good new fireworks show.
Someone said, bring back wishes. I agree. Even if it just came back for like a night. I love it. My gosh, when they started this announcement and they were going through all of the old spectacular soundtrack music, I was like, oh, my heart.
I thought they were going to announce the return of Illuminations, because they did this entire...
The entire act of We Go On.
Yeah, they did the entire We Go On. Like, they had everyone in the Honda Center singing like, we go on, na 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 na. And they had the flame and the globe in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
It was like this big thing, and then nothing. So I'm like, if they wanted a surefire thing that people would just like absolutely bring the house down, announce like a redo of Illuminations. It doesn't need to be the same thing. Like, bring back new technology, but put a globe with some fire on it in the middle of that lake and have it finale with We Go On or whatever, and you will bring the house down.
I was messaging with someone who was also watching this live, and we were talking about, like, he's like, is Illuminations coming back? I was like, I would do terrible things on that stage if it meant they were announcing Illuminations is coming back.
Honestly, I mean, that does make me think we've been talking for so long, so I know we should wrap up, but it does make me think, like, what are the things that you thought would probably get some love right now that didn't? I'll start because I have one specifically, but I want to hear if you have others. So the one that I really thought was going to get some love is the Imagination Pavilion and Figment, because I was like, yeah, Epcot just got this really big, multi-year overdue or whatever, but that pavilion in particular, and the fact that Figment is like one of the most popular parks characters in the world, makes you think that they would do something big there, and they're just not. And I'm like, what's the holdup? That would be instantly famous and popular. Like people would obsess over that. So that was one thing where I was just surprised. Like no love for the Imagination Pavilion. What
Yeah,
about
I
you?
think they're over talking and doing things to Epcot, especially after they put all that time and we were like, well, we hate this. Except
Right?
for the glowing on Spaceship Earth. That is amazing. Don't touch that. But I thought that Disneyland Tomorrowland would get a little bit more
Get some love.
news. Like, you were ripe for pretty much like a total tear down and rebuild, save a couple attractions. I love the submarines. I would like them to stay, but you've got like underutilized buildings in there. You've got lackluster quick services. Like there's just nothing that is up to par. And now, our Tomorrowland isn't super spectacular either, but we just got an e-ticket put in there. We do have, well, I guess we have an almost equal number of attractions, but yeah, I don't know. I thought Disneyland Tomorrowland was going to get some sort of love.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I know people absolutely love it when I'm harsh on Florida. So I'm sorry about this Disney World statement before I make it. But I think because people don't like new constructions, new builds, and changes in Florida, you all have like a ton of old, uncared for attractions that are not as upkept as their Disneyland counterparts. Which fine, right? Like I think our Space Mountain is better than your Space Mountain because the technology in it all works and it doesn't feel like the Matterhorn where you might break your back on that final turn. And like that's fine. But you're absolutely right that in terms of the actual land, the layout, the ride lineup, it's starting to feel stale. And at this point, I think even bringing back the People Mover would like bring the house down.
Oh,
Like
for
if they just
sure.
announced that they were renovating the People Mover, like easily one of the most, you know, chill rides, people would lose it because it's just sort of like nothing new. But here's my prediction. Disneyland is going to get a ton of love at the next D23, and that's when they'll announce a retheme to Disneyland or to Tomorrowland. Because the reason why a retheme to Tomorrowland will also be unpopular is if you've ever looked at a map of Disneyland and you look at how big Autopia and the submarine ride are, which those two rides are completely on top of each other. So if one goes, the other goes. If you look at that amount of land, there's room for at least one, maybe two giant e-ticket rides. And that means taking out something that people like you just said, really, really do have nostalgia for. Autopia and especially the subs.
Yeah.
So
Well, and especially they're in the middle of like converting all the Autopia vehicles now. Like that's all
to electric
changing.
vehicles, yeah. So it's like,
And they
when are they
worked
gonna?
very hard to save the submarine ride.
You're
Shout
right.
out
And
to
now, yeah,
Tony.
yeah. When are they gonna do it? I don't know. But you're right. Tomorrowland could use some big old updates.
Otherwise, yeah, I don't know that there was like anything I was really hoping for that we didn't get. I will say I was surprised but not concerned by any means that they did not announce any sort of new resort. I thought for sure
Mm,
they would be like, oh, and by the way, we're doing reflections now since we put in all the infrastructure and spent all the money on it.
yeah, I mean,
Like, they
the
love
number
announcing DVC
crunchers.
resorts.
Yeah, I'm sure the number crunchers are like, no, we can't announce the next DVC until we've had a little while to sell through
Everything
uh
else.
through the Alani stock that we still have. But you're right. I that is a surprise. Um But I think we're probably getting away from the days when those sorts of things get announced at D23 because that show was already like 3.5 hours or whatever. Now, granted, was 2 of those hours music and performances? Yes. But they also are trying to sell it as like, hey, you want to come to D23 because we're going to entertain you and tell you the biggest news. So
It
we'll see.
it was interesting. It was a good time. Definitely, probably the biggest parks panel that we've had since D23's inception, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
But
Now, I know that we've talked for a long time, so we should probably move to wrap it up. But I do want to share with everyone overall, if you're thinking about going to D23 in the future, it is so fun to be in the room where it happens, but you should set your expectations super low on what is actually achievable each day because it's crowds on crowds on crowds. And unfortunately, it's the type of crowds where there's like a little bit of like danger involved. Like one day, Lake and I were texting, they opened the Anaheim Convention Center late because like the police had to get called on a fight that broke out at the Lorcana booth. And not that didn't happen once, but twice where there was a fight at the Lorcana booth. So there are vibes, is what I'm saying, and it's not for everyone. But do I think that we'll go again? Yeah, I think we will.
yeah, it is, as always, on our radar to go and check out. But we have done many a trips to Disneyland in California this year, and we'll be out there in less than a month already.
I know, I'm gonna see you soon. And are you running the 10K with us or no? You
Yeah,
are. So
doing
you'll be
10K
done,
and a
and
half.
then we'll leave for our start of the race and meet you at the finish line. But I'm super excited. We're gonna run it or I'm running it with my son, and he and I have never run a race together. And the 10K at Disneyland's perfect because it's the exact
10K is
length.
awesome.
It's the exact length you need to go through 2 theme parks. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
excited. Well,
will.
I'll see you in a month then.
Yeah, Nova, thank you again so much for coming on, helping me recap this. We spent almost half the time it took Josh to recap it, which does, I think, at least attest to the amount of news that we talked about here.
Yeah. If only you and I were singers, we could have musical performances between each announcement and take the full 3.5 hours.
I cannot do that. But let's go ahead and wrap it up because we have run hecka long here. Thank you
I
all
know.
so much for listening and watching, and we will see you next time on the DCL podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.